So I recorded this video earlier, but I listened to it back and I wasn't quite happy with it, even though they're normally just ramblings, but I just wanted to do it over. So, in my Curse of Strahd campaign on Monday nights, um, things happen. It's a campaign, there's lots of stories, but that's not what I'm here to talk about. Recently, for a little while, we had a fifth player join us. They were playing a goblin uh, artillerist artificer. And they played for, I think, about a session and a half before they then dropped out. And that was disappointing. I liked the character. And he filled out, this goblin filled out the roles of the party pretty well. He was a intelligence-based, long-range kind of character, which helped fill out the group of my character as the kind of close range stiker. Stiker? What's a stiker? Close range barbarian who's, striker tank mix. Tank via the slasher and sentinel feats, which, hello, cat. Um, stiker. Then we have the offensively minded death cleric. We've got the healing focused druid, Unta, the goblin, the other goblin. We've got the versatile hexblade warlock Etzli, and also Unta's player is now playing a relatively standard evocation wizard. I think it's a Vidalcan race. Ugh, why can't I say that? Um, it's kind of like a secondary character for that player. Evident by during last session, the Goblin Druid was threatened by a single enemy, and no, freaked out like no, attack the other guy. Um, but again, it's not what I'm here to talk about. So during this session, or like right before it, we found out that fifth player is coming back. And we, of course, all expected him to rejoin with our little goblin, or his goblin artificer, because why wouldn't he? We didn't know exactly why he left, but apparently a big reason he left was he didn't enjoy his character anymore. He apparently played an artificer in a different long-term campaign, so uh, that's a thing, and decided to join back in this campaign with a new character, which is Stormhorn, the Storm Herald Barbarian. Now, that's a little curious to me because, one, doubling up on classes isn't necessarily a bad thing in a party, but with barbarians in particular, there's not a whole lot of variance in how you can build them. Like, for example, well, in the example I'm going to get to in a minute, with rogues, you can build a two-weapon fighting rogue that's all about stabbing people with short swords or knives. And you can build a crossbow using longer range rogue. You could do either one, and they both work out. And that is, well, you're accomplishing different goals. You might have different stats, like that closer range stabby rogue is going to need a bit more con, just stat wise. Whereas that crossbow using rogue can afford to put some stats elsewhere, like have a higher intelligence, higher wisdom, those types of things. But with barbarians, their class features are so pigeonholed to just using melee weapons. There isn't a huge amount you can just do with them. Essentially, rage only functions off of strength-based melee weapons. Or melee weapons when you're using strength for their attack and damage. So, you can't build a, like, ranged fighter kind of barbarian. You can't build a uh, dex dexbarian, I guess it would be the dumb nickname. You can't really build that. All you can really do is you can grab a shield and a sword and go that route, or you can grab a big ass weapon and go that route. And that's the route most players tend to go. It's the route I went, and it's the route this barbarian went. In particular, he's got let's go over what I know about this barbarian so far. He's a minotaur. He's got a great axe and a spear for some reason. For you can have multiple weapons just for flavor. Um, and he had a little bit of flavor at the beginning of this little fight we had. Stabs the spear into the ground to be ready. I don't know if he was preparing to throw it or in case he needed to do something with it, or if he's got some special magic items that I don't know if anything about. Could be any one of those. But regardless, um, he's as far as I can tell, he's pretty standard Storm Herald Barbarian Minotaur race. I couldn't tell if he has any special feats. I didn't see them being used. Um, he's got a 20 strength and I believe a 16 or 17 constitution based on the save DC for his Storm Herald features. We pick up on these things. Um, can't tell any of his other stats. Can't tell what his AC is. I don't know what his dex is. Um, so I don't want to call any of that an issue. I'm not going to use that term, but I'm going to say the main, what's the word? Sticking point, the main discussion point that I'm having right now is when you have, especially with two barbarians, two characters that function very similarly, there's a lot of overlap there. Um, and it's very easy to create a lot of overlap both narratively and mechanically. Mechanically, this new Minotaur Stormhorn and my barbarian Senlir are relatively similar. We both use what is mechanically a great axe, but we're two different subclasses, which mostly just focus on extra damage. The Stormhorn's subclass has some other fun little features, like the Storm Aura and the Lightning Resistance and the free swimming speed that he gets, because I believe he's a sea-aligned Storm Barbarian. Looking at that subclass, actually, a complete aside, looking at that subclass, I feel you should really be able to change your choice whenever you rage, because it's more fun, and you can have some versatility there. But that's just me. Right now, in the base rules, you can only change it when um, you level up. Um, but you get some fun little features there, and you get some druidic flavor, nature heavy flavor there. But as far as I can tell, he's a fairly, and I don't want to use the term generic in a bad way, he's an archetypical kind of barbarian, especially being a minotaur. He's a big, beefy dude, probably does mercenary work, hits stuff with a great axe. Maybe isn't the most learned, but he can recognize some magic at least, like obvious magic runes covering a door and protecting it. So he's not a dumb character. That's always nice. Um, but other than that, can't really tell too much about him. And seemingly his strategy and tactics are going to be hit stuff with a great axe and just have enough health to just survive better than other dudes. Now, that said, the character I'm comparing him to, my character, had a lot more development. I played him in this game for a lot longer, and I've got way more magic items. I've got some free feats, and especially those feats help pad out his Senlir's playstyle and capabilities. He's got the slasher feat and the sentinel feat, which help mitigate enemy movement. And the slasher feat, in the case of a crit, makes it so that all enemies have disadvantage on attacks, helping my team and myself their survivability. So that's where the kind of tank role comes in, aside from just having a ton of hit points and resistances. Um, Otherwise, Senlir's an Asimar barbarian, and a zealot, so he's got some easy to resurrect stuff there. He's got some fun little mechanical stuff, and being an Asimar, he's got extra resistances and that celestial flavor. So all good stuff there. There's in a on a basic level, this is more than enough differentiation between these two characters. But I always like more. And especially now with this other barbarian to contrast against, how is that going to affect both of us, both barbarians, and how we develop them in the future? That's I think a really interesting question. Um, Sandlier, of course, isn't the super uncivilized character that most barbarians are. He's effectively a barbarian in kind of class only. He does come from a isolationist religious cult, sure, I'll give you that, but he's not uncivilized. Not saying that Stormhorn is uncivilized, of course, um, but I'm talking about the standard barbarian stereotypes. Um, but otherwise, yeah, we'll see how that differentiates, and especially how these two characters differentiate themselves in combat. Um, who knows exactly what kind of magic items Stormhorn is going to get? Who knows if Stormhorn might eventually multi-class into something else later? Maybe he'll decide to take a more AC focused role, or not role, more AC focused route and pick up a shield and a sword and do that instead, or pick up a shield, just use a spear and use Polearm Master and just do that, even though that conflicts with the whole Storm Herald thing because that uses your bonus action every turn. So that's kind of limiting and not as fun. But anyway, so the other example that I wanted to bring up was from my other game, the Erlmeyer campaign, in the one I'm playing a Lizard Folk Ranger. Much earlier on in this campaign, where it was just my Lizard Folk Ranger, a Soul Knife Deep Gnome, and an Air Genasi Wild Magic Barbarian. So three marshals, not a whole lot of magic. My Ranger has magic, and the Wild Magic Barbarian has a little magic. But another friend of mine wanted to join the campaign, and this type of friend is the type of player that always plays exactly the same character, basically. He wanted to play I think it was Halfling. I might have convinced him to play Half Elf instead, I can't remember. But some kind of Halfling or Half Elf. Assassin Rogue. He always plays Assassin Rogue, apparently. So, didn't want to play anything else. Didn't want to try a different role that was currently unfulfilled in the party. Ideally, we didn't have we didn't have a wizard, we didn't have a sorcerer, we didn't have a cleric, we didn't have a druid, we didn't have any magic-y type character, whether it's offensive or healing or whatever. Didn't have any of that, and he just wanted to play an assassin. Okay, the way that was going to end up differentiated is the Soul Knife Rogue that we already had in the party is, of course, had high intelligence, reasonable wisdom, good dex and stuff, low charisma, and just had no charisma skill proficiencies and focused on insight, investigation in particular, perception, all that good stuff. Was more of a detective. In fact, well, that's the character's actual employment in universe. But the assassin rogue in oh, and the soul knife was starting to favor the use of this magic crossbow that the character got. Whereas this assassin rogue was probably going to be knife focused, poisoner's kit, stabby, standard stuff, higher charisma as well, in an attempt to, be able to deceive and persuade. That is also enough differentiation. While it would have been enough differentiation just from the subclasses and stuff and the different stats, different weapon sets help a lot, different skills, proficiencies help a lot, and that's definitely where you want to go in those types of areas. So I think that's pretty much all I really wanted to cover. Um, but sometimes players can't be bothered to fill a different role, and they have an idea for a character they're really excited about, and that's what they want to play, and that's fine. Um, Especially once you get into a game, and if your character is very similar to another character, as long as you both continue to play them, you'll start to differentiate them and start to find the differences between them and or build up a fun rivalry because they're both good at the same thing. So why wouldn't they compete? Um, yeah, that's about it. Definitely wanted to re-record this video because I felt the previous version on my phone wasn't. It was too rambly, and it wasn't exactly true to how I felt about it. Um, so yeah, maybe I might end up revisiting this topic again in the future because I think it's a really interesting concept. Whether just playing the same class, the same archetype, the same anything, a party full of clerics named the Amen. Always, always a good topic.